Yo, what's up guys, and welcome back to a new video. Today we're gonna talk a little bit about patch 11.0.5 and how to play Fury accordingly in the patch. Now we have seen quite some tuning recently, and luckily we have received some buffs, and this has changed the way that we play a little bit from how we used to do it back in the previous patch. So because of all the questions that we have gotten on stream, I figured it's long overdue to make a video about how to play and what has changed. So without any further ado, let's dive straight into what it is that has changed and how to play. Starting off with the talents, we still see Mountain Thane pulling ahead of Slayer by a little bit. Now, the reason why Mountain Thane is still better for Mythic Plus is purely because of the AoE damage that it's able to put out, being slightly ahead of Slayer, while also maintaining very competitive single target damage output, and just the general survivability of Mountain Thane is quite a bit better than Slayer, putting it slightly ahead for those higher level keys. Now there are some different iterations that you can use for Mountain Thane. This is the standard build that we're talking about, but there's also people that opt out for Odin's Fury and instead go for Vicious Contempt for a little bit more single target output. Now do keep in mind that if you opt in for this change for a little bit more single target output, that you do change to Berserker's Torment and that you need to find another way to get enraged other than Odin's Fury. Now some people might not enjoy the playstyle of Reckless Abandon and rather tune in for Anger Management. Now if you rather play Anger Management, you just simply swap out your Reckless Abandon for Anger Management and your Powerful Enrage for Frenzied Enrage, and you will achieve the same goals. Now do keep in mind though that this build is slightly below the Reckless Abandon variant, so you are gonna do a little bit less damage, but you will have your burst more frequently. Now in some keys this could potentially be better, such as for example Mist of Tyranor Side, where you have the mace that do not really line up with your cooldowns very properly. It could be handy to have your cooldowns a little bit more frequently because it just aligns better. Now let's talk a little bit about Slayer. I personally prefer this build, however it is quite a bit behind Thane in terms of AoE output, and it is only slightly ahead in single target output. Now the build has not really changed from what we have seen before. The only difference is that Anger Management is way more viable in Slayer right now than it was before. So if you rather play Slayer Anger Management, what you will do is simply opt out of Reckless Abandon, go into Anger Management, and you could opt out of 1 point in Armor to the Teeth for Uproar if you rather have it align with your Odin's Fury. Now do keep in mind though that if you do not play Uproar perfectly, that it is a DPS loss over having that extra stack in Armor to the Teeth. Now there is one big concern whenever it comes to Anger Management that I heard a lot of people talk about. Whenever you play Anger Management, it will happen that your cooldowns will desync from each other, making it a little bit more split-second decision whether you are gonna send your cooldowns separately or if you're gonna wait for them to be together. And that is not a real good rule for when you should be sending them together or when you should be sending them separate. I usually try to keep in mind that whenever I have my Odin's Fury up but I do not have my other cooldowns up, or the same goes with Thunderous Roar, do I get another set of usages by sending it now? Or can I wait like 10 seconds in order to align them, and will that actually cost me DPS by doing so? Now if you do not miss a usage by holding on to your cooldowns for about 5 to 10 seconds, I usually prefer to wait a little bit because it just makes your burst quite a bit heavier. Now if you do miss out on a usage, I usually just send them. Especially whenever it's Bladestorm, you get your Bladestorm back super fast whenever you're playing Anger Management because of all the Slayer strikes and also because of the Anger Management cooldown reduction on your Bladestorm itself. So keep in mind that sometimes holding is not the option because you just get your cooldowns back so quickly. Now let's talk a little bit about how to open with these builds and how to use your priorities accordingly. Starting off with Mountain Thane, we instantly see quite a difficult opener because we're playing with Ravager and Unhinged. Now for the people that do not know, whenever we use Bloodthirst or Bloodbaths, we have a chance to proc a Thunderblast proc. These only stack up to 2 times, and with our hero talents we also proc 2 Thunderblasts by using our avatar. So we're instantly at the cap of the Thunderblasts that we're about to be able to use, and we will need to dump them as fast as possible while maintaining our rotation optimally to not lose out on Unhinged Bloodbath procs. Now that's a pretty big mouthful, but it will get a little bit simpler when we actually dive into it. To take a little bit of a look into how you actually open up, I have an example here, but keep in mind that the timings are very tight because of the way that Unhinged procs your Bloodbath. So whenever we look into it, we start off with a charge into our macro, into a rampage, and we will instantly follow this up by our Ravager into a Thunder Blast, into a Crushing Blow, and our Unhinged will consume our Bloodbath, into another rampage, Crushing Blow, Odin's Fury, another Thunder Blast, and our Unhinged will proc our Bloodbath again into a Rampage, Crushing Blow, and this is where our last proc of Unhinged will proc our Bloodbath into the normal rotation. Now this sounds like a mouthful, and I would definitely advise you to practice this as the timings are very tight. Like I said, Unhinged consumes our bloodbaths, and you want to have those bloodbaths available to you whenever those proc. Now, you also do not want to overcap on those stacks of Thunder Blast, so you want to make sure that you consume them before your Unhinged actually procs it. This is quite a bit more difficult than our Slayer variant, and I would advise you to do some practice on the target dummies to get these timings done properly, as it is not as easy to pull off, especially in hectic scenarios where you need to make some split-second decision making and maybe also kick, stun, or whatever you need to do in an M+ scenario. Now, whenever you come out of this rotation, the priority is pretty simple. You just want to use your Thunder Blasts whenever you have them available and you're enraged. You want to use your Thunderclap to refresh your stacks of Meat Cleaver. You want to Rampage whenever you are not enraged or whenever you don't have Crushing Blow or Bloodbath available to you. And you want to Crushing Blow into a Bloodbath, and if you do not have those available, you want to fill with a Bloodthirst and a Raging Blow. Now, Execute is very low on the priority in Mountain Thane, as we do not really gain much from it. The buffs do not really change too much to this either, and in general, we don't really use Whirlwind at all, as our Thunderclap kind of does the exact same thing. But it could potentially happen in very rare instances that you run out of a global and you could fill as a Whirlwind. I don't personally think that it's enough to put it on your bars, but if you want to have it there, you could, and you might use it once a dungeon. Now, going into our Slayer variant, it is pretty easy. We will just want to charge into our macro, and we will want to use a Rampage into a Bladestorm, and after our Bladestorm is done, we will want to follow up with an Odin's Fury into a Crushing Blow, into Rampage, Crushing Blow, Bloodbath. And that is pretty much the entire opener on the Slayer part. Now, after you are done with this rotation, it is pretty simple. You will just want to Rampage whenever you are not enraged or you don't have Crushing Blow and Bloodbath available to you. Obviously, you want to Whirlwind whenever you do not have Meat Cleaver stacks, and you want to Crushing Blow into Bloodbath. Now, because of the buffs to Bloodbath, it is sometimes maybe a little bit better to press Bloodbath before Crushing Blow, especially whenever there's multiple mobs around that are about to die. Keep that in mind that you can proc that Reap the Storm last second with that Bloodbath or that Bloodthirst, so keep that in mind if ads are about to die, that it might be more beneficial for you to send a Bloodbath rather than a Crushing Blow. Now, to showcase you guys how anger management versions of these builds look like, I am going to talk a little bit about it and then show you how it's actually done. Now, for our Thane version of anger management, we do not really care anymore about our unhinged proccing bloodbaths, as we do not play Reckless Abandon anymore, so this is not an issue anymore. So whenever we look at the opener, we will still want to charge into our macro, into a Ravager, and we will just want to spend our Rampages for that cooldown reduction and spend our Thunder Blasts. Now, we do not really care too much about anything else, and the only thing that we really need to keep an eye out on is whenever we use our Odin's Fury, when the dot from our previous Odin's Fury procced by our avatar is about to run off. Now, to show you guys how this kind of looks like, we charge into our macro, Ravager, Rampage, and we will just use our Thunder Blast, Raging Blows, Rampages, and here we use our Odin's Fury, and we will just keep spending and generating that CDR. Now, whenever we're out of our unhinged window, we start prioritizing Bloodbath, but we still keep sending as soon as we hit that 80 rage mark to get that cooldown reduction on our Recklessness and on our Ravager. Now, as I said before, you can see that our cooldowns are quite disaligned, and you will see kind of a pattern that Recklessness, Odin's Fury and Ravager usually seem to align, and you will have your cooldowns later on, your big ones, with Avatar and Thunderous Roar also being available. You usually want to hold out on having all those cooldowns available at the same time whenever you have the chance, but if they desync too much, you do not really care about it and you send it regardless. Now let's talk a little bit about Anger Management Slayer. Now I personally prefer to have Uproar here, but if you are not sure that you can get the most value out of it, just tune into Armored for the Thief and you will get about the same results. Now with Slayer Anger Management, you do pretty much the same thing as you do with Reckless Abandon Slayer, but you will just start to heavily prioritize Bloodthirst over your Raging Blows, and you will heavily prioritize Rampage whenever you have the chance to send it. So whenever you hit that 80 rage mark, just send those Rampages to get that CDR on your Recklessness, on your Bladestorm, and it should align with your Odin's Fury and with your Thunderous Roar at the same time for a bit of a mini burst, you can say. So how this looks like in practice, we will just charge into our macro, Rampage, Bladestorm, and after our Bladestorm is done, we will hit a Rampage again into Odin's Fury, Bloodthirst, Rampage, Raging Blow, Bloodthirst, and we will just keep repeating this process. Whenever we have Bloodthirst available to us, we will send it, and whenever we have our Rampage available to us, we will send it as well. Now whenever we hit 3 marks of execution on our target, we will want to use our Execute instead. This is because we generate even more cooldown reduction on our Bladestorm and a triple mark for execution. Execute is actually a quite heavy hitting ability. Now like I said, once again our cooldowns will kind of disalign. Whenever you play Anger Management Slayer, you will usually find that Recklessness, Odin's Fury, Bladestorm and Thunderous Roar are somewhat synced with each other, and once every second set you will have Avatar available to you as well. Now because of the way that Slayer works with marks for execution, it could happen that your Bladestorm is up well before the rest of it, and like I said, if you gain an extra usage by sending it, just send it. If you do not, then I usually try to hold it for whenever I have Odin's Fury, Recklessness and Thunderous Roar available to me, if it is within like 5 to 7 seconds for me being able to have them up. Now I didn't want to go too in depth in this video as we covered most of these subjects in our previous guide, so if you're curious about our racial, stat weight, all that stuff, you can check out the previous guide. I hope you guys enjoyed this guide. If you did, make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment down below, and come check out the stream sometimes. And as always, hope to catch you guys in the next one.